Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast with Blaha. And today I'm having lean ground beef and Asian stir-fry vegetables. All right. Last time I said that, by the way, someone said, "I hope you're not stir-frying them in soy sauce." No, I don't eat soy sauce. I cook them in the Instant Pot. It's Asian stir-fry frozen vegetables from Costco, thrown in the Instant Pot. All right. Over to the point, though, of today's video. Let's talk about deadlift. Because there's definitely some confusion with this. And I did a consultation the other day with a guy who wants help with his deadlift. He's at 500, wanted to get to 585. And I broke down some stuff, and he started taking notes because I guess he wasn't fully aware of this. But when it comes to understanding primary movers versus stabilizers in the deadlift, so that you can understand what's going on with it, and we're talking about the conventional deadlift. There is some confusion as to which muscles help you stabilize the load and how they do it versus which ones move the weight. So let's get out of the way right up front. Which muscles move the weight? All right, quads, even though quads, a lot of people will point out quads are probably not a weak link in the deadlift. That is true. However, strong quads will improve your deadlift. And the only reason people say quads are not a weak link is because most people squat or do leg work. In which case, we can make the argument that squats themselves may be a stronger training stimulus for the quads than deadlifts. And so therefore, since you already have a bigger movement like that, it's probably not going to have a weak link there. But it doesn't mean quads don't matter. All right, quads help you break it off the floor and getting bar speed off the floor. So they're one of the important muscles for breaking the weight off the floor. Now people say, well, what about the back? No, the back is about stabilizing off the floor, most of it. Quads break it off the floor. And then once you start to get it moving, erectors, hamstrings, right? Erectors and hamstrings in different ratios at different points get you up. They get you up past the knee. And then the glutes, and keep in mind, glutes are involved all the way through. The glutes are what lock it and drive it through at the top. Now, the glutes doing that at the top is contingent upon back position. In other words, people who pull with a rounded back or a lot of thoracic extension, the upper back is actually a primary mover. Okay, and this is where it gets confusing because the upper back has to roll up and lock. You're not as reliant on the glutes there. Now, glutes do matter. It's just the glutes start to become a limit as far as their role as a primary mover further down in that case. And it makes sense because if you think about it, the point where you lock the hips and push forward, that's glutes. Now, that also doesn't mean they don't help off the bottom, because they do. It's just this is where they're mechanically doing more work than other muscles. Okay, and glutes drive it through unless you have back rounding, and then you have to lock that at the top, in which the T-spine becomes important. And that includes both the thoracic erectors, that includes the traps. It includes the traps. And when I say back for the rest of it, lower back matters, right? Lower back is a factor, even though it is largely a stabilizer. But keep in mind, our lower back doesn't have a lot of range of motion. So there is going to be some travel of it through most of the movement. So what then is stabilizing it, and why does that matter? All right, the lower back is a stabilizer all the way through. Okay, it helps stabilize the load. An important stabilizer. So you need that strong isometric strength there. But the other important stabilizers are going to be the lats and the traps. And this is one reason I used to point out that rack pulls above the knee were not the best trap exercise. I used to point this out that if you wanted a deadlift that's going to work the traps, you would want a full deadlift. Why? Because Different parts of the trap have to help keep the scapula in retraction and get pulled on at different parts of the range of motion. And just the very top, it's mostly just upper trap, right? And there's not more work being done just because you're putting an extra 300 pounds on or 400 pounds to do the rack pull. Not necessarily doing more work there because it's just an isometric contraction at the top and a stretch load. But when you're bent further over, such as at the bottom, more of the middle trap and the lower trap has to help do that. And you don't get that with that exercise. So technically, if we were talking about trap exercises, the full conventional deadlift would be better there. And it's better than sumo. Deficit deadlift even more so. Not that I would recommend a deadlift as your primary trap exercise either, because I wouldn't. But it was simply pointing that out. Lats. Lats are a big deal on the deadlift. So much so that when you look at EMG studies, a lot of times deadlifts beat rows and pull-ups for lat activation. Now, when you say that, people say, oh, that's not possible. It's not moving there's no dynamic movement. Doesn't mean there's less EMG activity, right? We can make the argument that a higher EMG activity with almost no range of motion, though, won't equal more growth, but it will equal muscle growth. There will be muscle growth. Deadlift will build your lats, just not as well as a pull-up or a row. And that's where, again, hopefully people can agree that, yeah, those will build bigger lats. Deadlift is still a lat exercise, still contributes, but it's a stabilizer there. And it also, again, keeps your scapula in retraction. Keeping the shoulder blades back and down all the way through the range of motion helps you maintain a tight bar path. Right? It'll help you maintain a cleaner bar path. You're going to be stronger. If you have better stabilizers, it'll matter. Like, it can make a big difference on your deadlift. Doing a bunch of lat training, if you struggle with the bar swinging out of its position at any point, which is common, right? Especially as we start getting up towards the knee and stuff, the bar swinging, building lats and traps can add a lot to your deadlift, because now you can use the primary movers to lift it correctly. And it really matters even if you're going to do rep work on the deadlift. If those muscles are weak, you're going to have lower quality reps. Primary movers aren't going to be used as effectively. You're going to get less out of it. So it's not just for maxing. So those are your big stabilizers. So when we think of primary movers that move the weight on the deadlift, it's going to be quads, hamstrings, glutes, low back. In some cases, the T-spine, depending on your technique, but only at the lockout. It's like the quads are primarily involved off the floor. And then the most important stabilizers are going to be obviously still lower back, your erectors, your traps, all three heads of the traps, because of, again, different parts of the range of motion, and your latissimus dorsi. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.